Got a brother on the line who's currently working on a documentary about his life story, and he's here to share a little bit of it with us. Ladies and gentlemen, on the line from 5 Deuce Hoover Gangsta Crip in Tennessee, I have Lamont. What up, Lamont?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm
Shout
doing
out
good.
to Dusty Vision, man.
Thank you, homie. Thank you. I appreciate you once again joining the program and sharing your story with us.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Let's take it all the way back, man. Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up on the east side of Nashville, Tennessee, man, originally. Yeah, all through the east side, man. Later came out after doing a long bid, 7 years. Came out with family, LA, you know.
Okay. Well, let's even go back a little bit further, you know, before you I guess, quote unquote, jumped off the porch or whatnot. Who were some of the gangs, if there were any, you know, present really in the Nashville area before Crips and Bloods made an appearance?
There really wasn't any gangs back in the day, man. I mean, you had certain cats going against each other. East side may go against the west side, vice versa, or south side, or whatever, man. It really wasn't any gangs back in the day, man, at all. You know, no official gang where, you know, you had members. So it was basically a lot of cats who primarily grew up with each other in the same neighborhoods or whatever. But that was it before the Crips and Bloods.
Okay. And what about you? What was your upbringing like back then? You know, was mom around, dad around?
Mom was around, you know, which you normally have. It's crazy that in some places that's the norm, but that's what it is, man. I grew up in a single family home. I didn't meet my pops until I was like 11 years old. And I probably didn't see him no more after that for like 4 years. But yeah, just grew up. My grandmother raised me, rest in peace. That's it, man. You know, I was only child. You know, grew up on the east side of Nashville, man. My upbringing was basic, man. You know, grew up in the projects. You know, grew up in what's considered, you know, low income area, and you know, went to school, dropped out of school, man, at a young age, and started getting into the life of crime, man. Probably around 14 or 15.
Okay. Well, to the best of your knowledge, when did Crips and Bloods, you know, first make an appearance? When's the first time you ever even heard of Crips or Bloods?
Well, before I answer that question, man, I'm gonna say this, man. You know, and no disrespect and no shade on nobody, man. But from my recollection, man, and I can say that for a fact because I was present. That the first time I ever seen or heard of any Crips, like 1986, 1987 in Nashville, man. And back then, cats wasn't gang banging. You know, you just had a lot of affiliates that would come down to Nashville, man, and do their thing, you know, from LA. But yeah, definitely the 107s, Undergrounds, the first gang that I seen with my own eyes. And then other gangs started to come down a couple of years after that.
Okay. And you mentioned offline that you were actually present when the first 107 UGCs were put on. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was in the pen with the very first Nashville. Let's make that clear. The Nashville member was put on by LA 107 UGCs, man. I was in the pen present right there when it all took place. That was in 1992. I came off the porch with this gang thing, man, back in September 1990, man. You know, being the first member in Tennessee that ever claimed and represented, you know, that was known. You know, again, you might have some cats try to dispute that, but they can't because the truth is the truth.
Take me back, you know, to that time period of when you clicked up with 5 Deuce.
Well, back then, again, you know, you had some cats from different sets around 89, 90, man. They came down doing their thing, and some of them got caught up, had to do some time, and it was brand new. You know, Nashville at that time was a virgin turf, you know, for a few things, you know, street life, gang bang life. Wasn't nobody doing it like LA was doing it, so, you know, met a couple of cats from Deuce, one in particular, another cat at the same time. He was from Harlem 30s, you know. That was in 1990, man. That was in the county jail. In our county jail in Nashville, Tennessee, man, when that took place. Stayed there about a year, man.
Okay.
About a year, and then went off to the pen. And from then on, maybe like 92, when I went to the pen, man, first penitentiary I ever touched down. First few guys that I put on, first 5 guys that I put on at that particular pen, man. That happened in a pen called Northwest Correctional Center in Tennessee, like West Tennessee.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely want to talk about prison, but I want to kind of go a little bit slower. So, when did you do the juvenile hall thing? You know, jail.
I didn't really do the juvenile hall thing, man. I went to the juvenile facility right there in the city a few times, but I did a whole bid in the prison system, man. Did probably collectively maybe a whole year and a half in the county prior to going to prison.
Okay. And what's it like for an active gang member to, you know, enter jail? Let's start with jail. What was that whole situation like?
See, it was a whole different situation, man, because in Nashville, we were slow to it, you know, so you had guys that really didn't understand the whole makeup of gang banging in Nashville, because it didn't start in Nashville, for one, you know, and it was something new, you know, so guys that I probably knew prior to that, or, you know, were older, they really didn't understand it because we didn't have a gang life in Nashville at the time.
Okay. And we talked a little bit offline about the movie Colors, and you mentioned that the movie Colors did play a part of influencing gangs around like the 88, but they had no clue on how to properly represent either organization, the Crips or the Bloods. Can you kind of go a little bit further into that?
Yeah, man. And what I mean by not properly representing, man, because at times, man, you know, you had guys that would come from Los Angeles, claim, and you have to really highlight the word claim to be a gang member or a gang banger, and knowing that we didn't have the knowledge of, could easily get in and say, you know, I'm from here, I'm from this set or that set, you know, and start putting cats down, you know. But that later changed, you know, when brothers like myself started to get more knowledge of what really was going on and had to touch the soil myself, you know. So, yeah, man, there was a lot of cats, man, that was claiming to be Crips and Bloods, man, and really wasn't their fault, you know. Whoever put them on, you know. So yeah, that's how that happened, man.
Okay. What age range were you most active, would you say?
Age range 17 and up at the time. You know, I was 18 at the time. I'm 48 one day, of being 49 tomorrow, but I was 18, man, when I started getting my feet wet into this cripping, man, for real.
Okay. And what about Nashville? Because, you know, I'm in my 40s as well, mid 40s, and, you know, the 90s, it was just crazy. You know, late 80s, early 90s, even for a civilian like myself. What was Nashville experiencing a same, you know, type of uptick in crime and gang activity in the, you know, early 90s?
Oh yeah, because like you were saying, man, you know, when Colors came out, that definitely influenced guys, you know, females to try and represent or claim something that they had no clue about the actual lifestyle, you know. So, you know, you had people young age, 16, 15, 18, wearing blue flags and red flags. But they didn't know what they was doing, man. And, some of the people that probably didn't know each other or may have grew up with each other end up being enemies just because I'm going to pick this red side, I'm going to pick this blue side back then, man. So around 88, 89 is when you start to see that. But, you can't really count those people as being really official because the people didn't properly have hands put on them, initiated properly, by Los Angeles, man, to get that stamp put on it, man.
Yep. Numbers wise, is Nashville more of a Crip city or a Blood city? Numbers wise, obviously.
As far as that concerned, man, the Crips definitely outnumber the Bloods in Nashville. But most recently, I'd say in the last 5, 6 years, 7 years, there's been a lot of factions of Bloods, man, appearing, and more cats coming down from Los Angeles, coming to Nashville, surrounding areas, putting cats on.
I had a cat on my show from Nashville, and he kind of mentioned that rappers like Mac 10 and Snoop Dogg had some sort of an influence on gangs in Nashville. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm gonna say this: maybe in his age bracket, he might be a youngster, and when Mac 10 or Snoop Dogg came, it may have been an influence for him and whoever he was around. But that's definitely false because Crippin' and Blood was in Nashville way before Mac 10 and Snoop Dogg ever touched. So, yeah, that's false.
Okay. But definitely movies like Colors. Would you say like stuff like Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society, things like that also kind of have an influence?
Definitely. I think, Boys in the Hood and Menace to Society, man, had an influence on the black culture, period, and others, all over the United States. But as far as Nashville, it just ante up the crime. When you see a movie like that, it's so surreal, man, and it make you want to be a part of it, especially if you're a youngster, you don't know any better. It makes you want to be a part of that type of lifestyle. So I would say, yes, man, those two movies as well had a major influence. Crime, how to finesse it better, become a better criminal, and, drive-bys, prior to that, cats wasn't doing drive-bys and stuff like that, man. So gang culture definitely influenced, how things later became, as far as the streets.
Okay. Yeah, being that you're in the, the age range where we were around when crack cocaine was huge, I saw how it devastated communities in LA with Mile and Ice, even looking back, hindsight, but you were living through it. Did Nashville, or take me back to, the times when Nashville, had a crack problem and what you saw.
Well, I can say something for a fact, but I'm gonna leave that for the documentary. Mm-hmm. That's a little piece that's gonna. But when I was present when the crack first hit Nashville, but I became incarcerated, man, and did that 7 calendar year bid, and so I didn't see the uprise of it. Mm. I didn't see how effective it was, for users and for dealers, man. I could only hear when I would call home from the pen and really what was going on the streets at that time in Nashville, motherfuckers get money and, in a major way.
What's the Mexican gang presence like in Nashville?
You can go certain parts of Nashville, man, and might see a few walls, Mexican community, struck up, MS-13s, they from El Salvador, so you might see that. You may see some brown pride, a few, I don't know how true or how much of a presence they had, but as seen a few 18th Street struck up in Nashville too, but I don't know how much influence that is, you know, because I mean, it's totally different than Los Angeles, man. Totally different, man. You know, it's not even a Crip and Blood war. It never have been, you know, in Nashville where it's constant like it is in Los Angeles. You know what I'm saying? It's just mainly a whole lot of cats on both sides just claiming or representing Crip or Blood, man. It's never been like a major war. You may have some killings on each side a few times, but not really, you know. It's not like that. It's not separated like that, you know, like it is, the formation is in Los Angeles, where you might be on Hoover Street and go down to Figueroa across, you know, 110 freeway and be on the east side being the enemy turf. It's not like that, you know, in Nashville, man. You know, you have the 5 Deuces on every part of town, the east side, west side, north and south. So, and Blood's the same way. Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's take it back to 1990, you know, just before you got that 7-year bid. Talk to me about what it's like, you know, being an active gang member, entering prison, you know, specifically. What was your first day like? You know, who do you check with? Like, explain to us.
Well, again, Tennessee had never seen the gang life, man. You know, and when you're in the Tennessee state prison system, man, at that time, you had a lot of older guys from Memphis, Nashville, surrounding areas, Knoxville, Chattanooga, you know, all together, right? So being a gang member coming in, that was something new for everybody, you know, not even being able to see something like that, the dress code, and until cats started to get locked up, there was real gangbangers. And I was able to, you know, be introduced and meet a lot of LA gang members when I first hit the pen. You know, a couple of cats from 87 Gangster, which is on the east side of LA. A couple of cats from 98 Main Street, also on the east side.
Who runs the prisons in Tennessee?
It's funny you asked that, man, because when I came home in 97, man, you know, nobody in particular ran the prisons, or, you know, just depending on what part of the state you were in. East Tennessee, Aaron Nations run the prisons. You know, more Middle Tennessee, Nashville, Chattanooga area, the blacks run the prison. Now that you have a large amount of Crips, not any particular Crips, but just Crips as a whole, you have a lot of Crips or the gangster disciples in different prisons. You know, they may run a particular prison. On the West Tennessee, you know, you have a lot of the same. In Memphis, man, it's a lot of gangster disciples and vice lords, man. So I would say that they probably control that part, along with the Crips, gangster disciples and the Crips. You know, probably in the prison system in Tennessee, I would say, from Middle Tennessee to West Tennessee.
Okay. And I think earlier you mentioned something about putting some people on while you were locked up.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk to me about the whole recruiting process and how you try to grow in numbers.
Well, man, I mean, back then, man, again, you know, we had no clue, you know, and a couple of guys, like I mentioned, that was from 2 particular Crip sets, man, you know, really introduced that lifestyle of being put on. So we just followed suit, man. You know, those couple of guys put on a few guys themselves. And for myself, you know, there's initiation. I mean, you understand initiation, man. So that's how they went. You know, we didn't have a particular place really in prison because prison is so open. You know, so you might have to fall in the bathroom or in a single cell or something. and put a cat on. So
now I know when you mentioned when you first got locked up that, Crips and Bloods were a new thing. Fast forward to 1997, was it more prevalent behind bars? Like, did the numbers grow drastically?
Yeah, they started to grow. By the time that I was on my way out, it started to grow. The difference is Los Angeles, man, California, when you're dealing with prisons, it's a street gang that, get locked up. Gangs members will get locked up for doing whatever, gang banging or whatever. It's a totally difference in Tennessee. Since we didn't have gangs on the street initially, a lot of the gangs were formed in prison until enough of them were able to come out, get out, and then start to initiate. So the process was totally different.
Okay. Want to go in another direction a little bit, but how important, especially at that time when you were coming up building and things like that, how important was it or is it to touch base with the land, the quote unquote land, for people out there who don't know what I'm talking about, Los Angeles?
Yeah. Well, at the time I had lost contact with my OG homeboy from the county jail to the pen. So initially we didn't have a contact, but for the cats, the two older cats who were from Main Street and from 87 Kitchen and 87 Gangster, they kind of taught the lifestyle of cripping. Being from Hoover, nobody could really actually teach me how to groove, which is a difference. Teach me about the H, which we say, the H is number one. Hoover is number one, meaning it comes before cripping, because it was Hoover's before it was anything, before the crip was even put on it. So, at first we just had to kind of go with the flow, man. And then once I came home, I wanted all of that to change, because I was heavy in it. And I wanted to make sure we got the right education about it, the knowledge about the history of where we claim who the Hoovers were. From the 4-tray to the one-way, I needed to know. So that's how that happened, man. When I took the trip, called my family members and took my first trip to Los Angeles, man, I was on a mission, so I can bring that same knowledge back to Tennessee and spread the word, man.
And to the best of your knowledge, why did 5 Deuce decide to stay Crip while, the other Hoovers went the criminal route?
I know that firsthand because a few years ago, back in 2007, 8, 9, I was shooting a documentary, One Nation Under Rule, LA to Tennessee, where I had a lot of OG Hoovers on the documentary, man. Somehow I lost that footage.
Oh, wow.
Thanks to Culver City Police in Los Angeles. But that's another story. Once the Crips started fighting the Crips, man, the homies, other than the 5 Deuces, the rest of the homies didn't want to claim Crip anymore. Because they figured, why be a Crip? Why stay a Crip if we only killing Crips? But, the 5 Deuces is going to stay the same. They didn't change to criminal, and that's another thing that got tangled and twisted outside of California, that when the whole Hoover card changed to criminal, except 5 Deuces, a lot of cats, especially in Tennessee, thought that that's what it was. And actually in New Jersey and New York, because I had the opportunity to go out there and straighten that situation out, where a lot of 5 Deuces thought that they was criminals and Crips, which was the craziest thing I've heard.
Interesting. Okay. So you kind of like an ambassador to go to different cities, and I guess that's the best word, right?
Yeah, I would say I'm an ambassador, but I was called upon. I sent the cat out of Trenton, New Jersey, at Camden called me while living in Los Angeles at the time, and had heard my name in the streets or whatever, and through somebody else, cats contacted me through social media. They flew me out to Newark, New Jersey. And I had the opportunity to meet cats in Irvington and Newark, Plainsfield, and Patterson, Asbury. All was Hoover. They had different sets of Hoovers in New Jersey too, but have a few 107 Hoovers and 5 Deuces, and up there. So yeah, man, I had the opportunity to do that, man, because like I said, man, you have these cats who, some of them are run outs, got kicked off the turf, booted out the turf for some from Los Angeles, man, and they'll just go to other states, other cities, man, and pretend to be something that they wasn't or not anymore. You know what I'm saying? And maybe because they grew up in that community, they say, I'm from Five Deuce, or I'm from Swans, or whatever the case may be. And for a person who don't know any better, man, they'll believe that shit, and take to it, and then become a fucking active gang member, but never seen the soil, man. Everybody has to see the soil. Everybody got to come to the land, man. So they was Five Deuce Hoover Gangster Criminal Crips in Newark, New Jersey, and I can't take the ambassador role, but I can actually definitely say for a fact, and many can vouch for this, is that I changed that whole narrative, the whole look. So after I left, them guys became Hoover Gangster Crips.
When you get out of prison, are you still active, or are you just like, nah?
Absolutely not, okay, man. No, I'm not active anymore, man.
No, not now, not now. Let's take it back to I meant in '97 when you were released.
When I came home, I was fully active.
Okay, still active.
I was fully active all the way up to 2011, man. I was fully active, man. Yeah, my name is Lamont, man, but formerly known in the gang world as NK. So anybody hearing this from any of your followers or whatever subscribers, man, they'll know who NK is. And I'm big NK. So, I changed that whole paradigm, man, that whole lifestyle, man. I had to make a conscious choice to do so, because I just thought it was very important, man, that we stop killing each other, man. And a lot of the murders that you've seen came from cats that grew up with each other or in the same set, man. I've seen a lot of that, Nashville to Los Angeles. So kind of got crazy and watered down to me, man. So I fully backed up 2011 and try to reconstruct my life, man, to do something more positive and better, man.
I love that. If you could put a number on it, how many people would you say you lost, be it to death, to jail, to drugs, in regards to this gang life?
Oh man, that's a high number, man. That's like, to the gang life in Nashville, I would say, personally, I know for a fact, because there's many more, but personally, probably 7 guys, 7 cats, man, from Nashville, that got killed, was murdered, man. It was gang members. As far as Los Angeles, man, personally, probably like 16 or 17, straight up. And not only from 5 Deuce, all the way up to the scale, from 9 Deuce, 9-4, 7-4, 8 Trey. And I've been to many funerals, man. That's a fact.
Do you think the average, former active gang member, do you think that they suffer from some sort of PTSD?
In what way? Break it down.
Just so you've seen a lot of stuff. I mean, people go to war overseas in Iraq and they see their soldier, their homeboy or whatever, their commander gets his head blown off. Things they've seen, things that keep them up at night. To this day.
Yeah. I may know a few cats like that. It had sometimes been a scare for me like that, man. seeing shit like that. You know, another reason why I wanted to change around, man. So I'm a father, and I had to show a good example to my daughters and my son, man. So that was important to me. And not only that, but to stop the continuation of killing my own kind.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
That's amen on that, man, because we're between them killing us killing us. I mean, we're going to be extinct in, 50 years, man. No BS.
Crazy you said that, because I had a conversation with a friend of mine, homeboy of mine, who's from Long Beach. He grew up in Saints, and I'm actually with that cat right now. But we was having that same conversation, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm glad that you are doing positive nowadays, and especially this documentary. Tell us about this documentary and what we can expect from it.
Well, definitely you're going to see it. It's going to be raw and uncut. I haven't got a title yet, but it's definitely going to show my full lifestyle, man, my whole life, man, from a child and being brought up on the east side of Nashville, and the trouble that I went through, not having a father in the home and getting in trouble at an early age, kind of briefly of what I've been explaining right now in this interview, but more of it. I'm not into dropping no names on my documentary, but for those who know, who's there, who's present, and know the history, they'll know exactly how this shit went down. But a lot, man, I went through a lot, man, and when I decided to make a change in my life, man, and find out exactly who I am as a black man, my whole life started to change, man. So I no longer flash gang signs or, a push gang life, man. Now I'm definitely for the betterment of the black race. Definitely a revolutionary for the liberation of the black culture and the black race. So that's where I'm at. 2021, man. That's March the 5th.
That's what we need, homie. That's what we need. And I always kind of like to end this question, the interview with this question. Let's take ourselves to hypothetical world. You know what I'm saying? If you could hypothetically talk to a 14-year-old Lamont right now, talk to the 14-year-old you, what would you tell him?
I would tell him that gang banging is not a lifestyle. It's a death style. And you can't win. And if I could see 20 years in the future at 14, I would have stopped myself, from the life of crime, period, man. To any other 13 or 14-year-old, man, that may be listening, you may think that it's the thing to do. It's a fad, it's all about being lit and smoking and popping pills. But, we got to understand, man, it's a bigger agenda, man. It's a bigger enemy out there, man, that's trying to smash on us, man, and trying to take us out. And we all got to come together, man, as one. And a lot of these OGs need to step up and speak to the BGs and the young homies and the tinies and the infants and the youngs, the babies and the littles. You know what I'm saying? We got to do that, man. We got to do that. So that's what I hope to see, man. Hope to somebody who listening, somebody that's changed, even if it's just one person, man, that changed their mind.
That's it.
That's what I want to do with this documentary, man. After you see this documentary, I want to be able to spark the mind of somebody young, whether if it's a male or female, man, teenager, or even an older person. They may be in their early 20s, man. I want to be able to spark something in them, man, to make them want to change, man. Because that's what it's all about.
Man, dog, we need more people like you in this world, homie. And I really look forward to your documentary. And I hope you and I can stay in touch. Maybe even have you back on in a couple months just to catch up and maybe get a little bit, deeper. Or go, like I said, try to save some lives, man, because that's what my program is all about. In a nutshell, I don't try to glorify shit. I want to reach out to these cats out there via people like yourself who have been through it, who spent time in prison, who got shot at, who saw their friends die. And I want them to think to themselves, is this the life that I really want?